Welcome, everybody, to our 5-minute Bible study. We are discussing Exodus chapter 27 today, and as always, there's a link down in the description where you can download all the notes that you're about to see up on the screen in a PDF format. And there's a bunch of other resources on our website, so check those out. Okay, Exodus 27. When did the events of this chapter take place? Well, the Israelites got out of slavery in Egypt in about 1491 BC. That was the topic of the beginning of this book. Now, in Exodus chapter 27, these events specifically took place around 3 to 4 months after the Israelites left Egypt. In terms of our main characters, we have God and we have Moses. God is having a conversation with Moses up on the top of a mountain, Mount Sinai. He's giving him some instructions for how to build a sanctuary, a tabernacle in which God's presence would dwell among his people. Moses was a man who was actually born in Egypt. He grew up in Pharaoh's household, and God used him to deliver the Israelites from slavery with the 10 plagues and the stories that we've already talked about. So if you don't know anything about those, go check out the beginning of the book of Exodus. Okay, and then in terms of our map, it's the same as it's been for like 10 chapters now. We are still at Mount Sinai. The Israelites are encamped at the bottom of the mountain. Moses is at the top of the mountain talking to God, and you can see the traditional location of Mount Sinai on the map. Chapter 27 is a continuation of God's instructions to Moses as to how to build the tabernacle, which was a special tent in which God was going to meet with Moses, and God's presence was going to dwell there while the children of Israel were wandering around in the wilderness. This was a movable structure. Verses 1 through 8 give us God's instructions for the bronze altar that was going to sit in the tabernacle courtyard. And just so you know, there's a diagram of the tabernacle at the bottom of this outline that will help you visualize the whole thing. I put that there instead of the applications section because I think it's helpful to make sense of all these dimensions and numbers and what this structure would have looked like. So just wait till the end and you'll be able to see the diagram. So after God finished giving Moses his instructions on how to build the curtains and the frames and the veils that were supposed to go in the tabernacle in chapter 26, he told him to have an altar built that was going to go into the courtyard of the tabernacle. So not in the tabernacle tent directly, but on the outside there was a courtyard and the altar was going to sit in that courtyard. The altar was to be made of acacia wood and it was to be overlaid with bronze. It was 5 cubits long, 5 cubits wide, and it was to be 5 cubits tall. And there was a horn of bronze that was placed on each corner of the altar. It was to have a grate or a net constructed of bronze in the middle of it. And when the altar needed to be moved, the people were to carry it on poles which slid into rings that were affixed to the outside, similar to the golden table and the Ark of the Covenant. In verses 9 through 19, we discuss the court of the tabernacle. So God wanted the tabernacle tent to be surrounded by a courtyard that was 100 cubits long and 50 cubits wide. If you don't remember, a cubit is about 1.5 feet or half a meter. The outer barrier of the court on the north and on the south side was to be created using 20 pillars of bronze and then 100 cubits of fine twined linen. The rear of the court on the west side was to be created using 10 pillars of bronze and 50 cubits of linen hangings. The front of the court, or the entrance, on the east side was to be 50 cubits across, but it was also to include a gate so that you could get inside, obviously. On either side of the gate, there were to be 3 pillars and 15 cubits of linen. So that's 30 cubits. The other 20 were supposed to be the gate. The gate was to be a, quote, screen 20 cubits long of blue and purple and scarlet yarns and fine linen embroidered with needlework and hung on 4 pillars. All the hangings which enclosed the courtyard were to be 5 cubits tall. Then finally, the last 2 verses, verses 20 and 21, the olive oil for the lampstand. So God told the people of Israel to bring pure beaten olive oil to burn in the lampstand in the tabernacle. And so Aaron and his sons, or the priests, were to tend to the light in the tabernacle morning and evening to keep it burning. And so that is Exodus chapter 27. Now, instead of doing an application, as I mentioned, I've created a to scale diagram of what this temple, or rather, what this tabernacle was supposed to look like from a bird's eye view. So if you take a look on the right there, that would be the east side. That was where the entrance and the gate was to the tabernacle courtyard. So you notice there's 15 cubits of hangings on either side, and then there's a 20 cubit gate there, and that's the way that you would enter. The bronze altar then sat in the courtyard of the temple, and the courtyard was 100 cubits by 50 cubits. You can see that laid out and labeled along the outer walls. The tabernacle itself is that rectangular shape there in the middle. In the very first room, when you would have gone in, there would be the lampstand and then the golden table that we discussed in the last chapter. And then if you went through the veil that split the tabernacle, you would go into the most interior room, which was the most holy place, and that was where the Ark of the Covenant and the mercy seat were located. So you've got a courtyard, within the courtyard, a structure, the tabernacle, within that tabernacle, 2 rooms, the holy place and the most holy place. So hopefully that's helpful in making sense of some of what we've been talking about for the last couple chapters.